What completely legal substance are you addicted to? When I had a cold, I used this nasal spray that shrinks the blood vessels in the nose and makes it easier for you to breathe. It is an over-the-counter drugstore item and you don't need a prescription. Once you stop using it, your nose clogs up, or at least it feels like it, because you used to breathe like a superhero for a week. The longer you use, the worse the withdrawals are. I couldn't properly breathe without it, so I ended up using it for almost half a year. Edit. In case someone is interested, I kicked the habit by buying few standard saline sodium chloride spray. It's just salt water that helps clean and treat dryness in the nasal passages. I used one for a few weeks, and while I still had serious trouble breathing through my nose, it greatly helped. I also slept in an elevated position with like 3 pillows. It took me almost a month to feel like I was breathing well. But still not as well as I was with the other stuff. Lip balm. I have a family member that got addicted to rice cakes. Like Quaker Oats rice cakes. She would send her son into the store to buy them because she was embarrassed of going into the store so much and the cashiers recognizing her buying all these rice cakes. She would leave them in all kinds of places throughout the house. In drawers at work, in her car, etc. I'm dying just writing this. When she took a trip to Hawaii, she took a bag and filled them with rice cakes because she was worried the island wouldn't have the ones she liked. Her husband was like, WTF? When he got there and opened the bag, she actually got talked to by her boss at work because the janitor told on her that she had all these crumbs around her desk constantly. She wasn't fat or a gross person or weird. She just got this addiction to rice cakes for like 9 months straight. Said she knew she had a problem with them and it was all she would think about at times. But it seriously was like an addiction. So funny. We still talk about it like 25 years later. Benadryl. A lifetime of adult insomnia led me to search for stronger sleep cocktails, and I took a Benadryl with melatonin. It got so bad I was up to a few every night, but happy to report now I am down to a half and going to go down to 0 soon. Doritos. I was a massive addict. I used to buy a couple whole boxes of them. I used to drive to Frito-Lay's to buy them directly from the factory because was the only places where you could buy this much without people asking questions. What makes me stop was in one occasion I went to a Colmado. Is pretty much a 7-Eleven or mini market here at Dom. Rep. Told the guy, give me this just on Doritos. Was around 800 DPO. Which is 14 United States dollars. One bag personal bag of Doritos is 25 DPO here. Around 30-something bags of Doritos. The guy looked at me and told me, damn. You just wiped my whole shelf. Now I need to call Frito-Lay's to bring me a couple boxes. I looked at the empty shelf. I was so embarrassed and disgusted of myself. On my way walking home I started to gift them away to people. I kept like 3 bags. Ate them, and since then I slowly were reducing my numbers of Doritos at weeks for the next couple months. I still love them. But I don't have the impulse anymore. Was liquor and sadness. Currently is Pokemon cards and a lot less sadness. Not great. But I see this as an absolute win. What's your, well, you don't see that every day, story? I'm a radiologist one day reporting. I pull up a CT of a 30-something-year-old who had abdominal pain. Specifically, they had felt tension. Then a distinct, popping, sensation with sharp pain. Then a vague but moderately severe ache that persisted. So I'm looking for the usual suspects in this sort of presentation: appendicitis, diverticulitis, maybe epiploic appendicitis or inflammatory bowel disease. Found a foreign body in small bowel. Looked odd on single slices. so I reformatted the image set in 3D. Found a bread clip. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/bread_clip. Interestingly, I found another one about 6 years later. My 2 cases constitute about 5% of all cases ever reported. On vacation in London, my wife and I were waiting for a train in a tube station. 2 trains arrived at the station before ours showed up. As a native New Yorker, I was comforted to see that pigeons live in subway stations everywhere. The first train pulls into the station and the doors open. As people enter and exit the train, one pigeon flutters down from the ceiling, lands on the platform and calmly walks onto the train like he's off to work or something. My wife and I laugh about this a little as the doors closed and the train pulls away from the station. The second train pulls into the station. The doors open, and people shuffle out. After a moment, a different pigeon walks out of this train and then flutters up to spot vacated by the first pigeon. Anyway, seems like London pigeons have the tube pretty much figured out. A big-ass old ceramic tub flew off a flatbed truck and exploded into a million pieces on the interstate. I once took the Channel from London to Paris. First time ever doing so. Or even being in France for that matter. As I was walking through the station, a dude ran up to me and started quacking like a duck. I still wonder how that dude is doing 2 years later. Worked as a waiter, and after we finished one night, a drunk man was walking down the street. One of my coworkers recognized him and asked if he was the German opera singer doing a show in the city. He answered yes and asked if we would like to hear him sing. So he gave us a 3 minutes private concert in the middle of the night, drunk of his ass. While jogging slowly up a steep hill, I got cheered on by the driver of the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. People who were on reality family shows as kids. Think Super Nanny, Wife Swap, etc. How much of it was real and how much was fiction, set up for drama? Did anything change? I was on Wife Swap when I was 10 years old. My family had to switch with a farming family and we were supposed to be the city family, even though my family and I lived in the suburbs. There were plenty of quotes taken out of context, as you'd expect. They also incited plenty of drama. I was framed as addicted to video games, so they took my Xbox and Game Boy Color for the week. A few days in, one of the crew members came in with my Game Boy and said, "Look, I found this," and handed it to me. It shouldn't be surprising that they sent the woman staying in our house into my room to catch me in the act. To be honest, not much has really changed in my life except getting Snapchats of my 10-year-old face when my friends catch the reruns. I'm open to any questions if anyone is curious. Edit. It was Season 3, Episode 12 of Wife Swap. A classmate of mine was on my country's Next Top Model. Before getting into the show, she was asked what kind of hair she would never want to get, so that the producers know about it and not make her have it during the makeover episode. My classmate had long blonde hair which she really loved. So she said she doesn't want them to cut her hair off and that she also hated strange, unnatural colors like blue, pink, etc. Fast forward to the makeover episode. The hairstyling team comes in and finds her hair unfitting for a model. So she needs to get a makeover, and guess what? Her makeover obviously consists of a pixie cut and green hair to make her look like a punk fairy. My classmate cried throughout the entire process. So I guess the producers got the drama they wanted out of this. My cousin had her wedding on my 600 pounds life. When the producers found out her godfather was autistic, they basically forced him into the wedding party. They made a bunch of drama with her mom, and in the episodes they were in before, they made a fake engagement just for the show. I worked with a junk removal company for an episode of Hoarders and it was actually 99% real. The only thing that they would set up a couple times was if they opened a box and found something interesting off camera, they would reopen it on camera and act like they just found it. My parents were dinner guests in an episode of Nanny 911 and they said literally everything was staged. I don't remember all of the details. But they said the directors had a code word that they would say to the kids when they were supposed to start acting all crazy. And then once the scene was done, the kids would be perfectly normal. One of my neighbors was on a house disaster reno show and it was a mixed bag. I think the crew hired by the show actually did very competent structural reno and repair type work. But the designer had super niche tastes, so the family ended up repainting everything and pitching all the decoration aspects to get the house ready for resale after having to act super happy for the cameras.
Subscribe, my brothers.